welcome to Ever Chosen Minis. Today I'm going to be showing you how I do my flight bases and just conceptually some of the things you might want to look at when trying to make your own. Traditionally GW's flight bases are not particularly great. Models snap off of them. People either don't like, it's just like a transparent tube coming out of their base. When they have like a beautiful basing scheme, it kind of sticks out. So I'm going to just be showing you how I choose to kind of hide the fact that it's a flying model, make it look like it's really built into my base slash world that I try to build whenever I'm making my army. And hopefully y'all can use these same tips to kind of meld it with your own and then get, a truly great result that you can be super proud of. Now, when you're starting to make your bases, there's a few things you want to kind of be thinking about whenever you're starting. Now, depending on what area you're in, you're going to be thinking about what naturally would have height in it that I can do. If you're doing a jungle bases, you're going to want to do something like tree stumps to just full on trees, maybe large rocks. If you're doing something like a tundra, like a big iceberg kind of icicle thing coming out, would be super awesome as well. For this, I do kind of ruined city and rubble bases. So I'm going to show you a few things that I, kind of thought of and used here in my example on what kind of naturally creates height in that environment, what I'm going to use. Now, whenever you're using these, alternate materials, one thing you want to do is kind of have a strong, rigid structure, something that can actually support the weight of your model up there. Because problem with the GW basing flight stands is that you got one tiny connection point. It snaps off the model all the time. A few of them do insert into the model, and that's a little bit better. But a lot of them, like the Inceptors, Sisters, Seraphim, all of those just break off pretty easily. So you'll see here in this first example, I'm making a wall out of cork. This is actually super simple to do. I just glued down two sections of cork next to each other. But you'll see one of the first things I do to not only add character to it, but also a little bit of structure is adding these cut up tank barrels that I'm going to be using as pipes on the side. It's going to add a little rigidity to the cork so that it's not just kind of loose cork hanging above. And when we glue all of kind of the rubble and dirt at the bottom, it's going to make a really solid structure. Um, Now, just to finish this off, I do the same thing with a lot of my other bases. So this, you can watch a dedicated video on that if you want this specific base. But I just use texture paste over the cork to kind of simulate concrete, and then we get the ground texture put in there. And then this one is ready to go, and I have a few more ideas here coming up that you can utilize to give even more, variety and unique look to your flight stands. Now, moving on to the next base here, I'm going to be utilizing a few new tools that you maybe haven't seen me use in some of my other basing. So, um, this is going to be using milliput. I think it's a fantastic material. If you haven't used it before, I highly recommend. It's like a super malleable putty. It's a two-part that you mix together, and it does a really good job of holding specifically basing material, I find, just because it's so malleable. You can really get in there with little bits, rocks, and kind of conform it to make more natural feeling terrain. Now, what I'm going to be utilizing for my next few, flight bases is actual just bits I have laying around. This is a great way to get rid of either kind of some unused terrain bits or just bits from kits in general that you haven't used. If you don't have a huge bit collection like I do, but you want something similar, local hobby shops and Facebook groups all the time are getting rid of bits. Usually it's like a take and leave whenever you can situation for those. So they're really accessible. As you can see here, this first one, I just used an orc bomb. I just put that into the milliput and then a few more plastic bits around it just to give it more of a junkyard, blown up kind of vibe. And then the same thing as everything else, just put a little bit of Mod Podge on it and then put the ground texture in there. Now you're going to see me do this on all the other bases. I think using these nicely sculpted bits from GW really does look the best. You tend to have just free detail that you yourself can't make when you're doing a base like this. At least for urban destruction, you will have different needs depending on the environment you want. but if you are doing something urban and you follow this video one for one, highly recommend this. This pipe came from a terrain set, I believe, from GW. I'm not sure if they still sell it on the web store, but there's plenty of substitutes. A lot of the new Kill Team boxes, if you're someone who has those or knows someone who doesn't use the terrain, really easy place to break off bits and pieces for height here. So as you can see, follow the same steps on this one, just creating the ground. And by the time this dries, it's going to leave a super, super solid bond, and these bases are not going anywhere. Now, finishing up these bases, and one thing that's going to make them so much better than GW bases is pretty much how we attach them to the models. We're going to be pinning, which is a much stronger connection than just gluing it onto the tip of the acrylic base stands that you see with GW. So pinning, really easy concept. If you haven't done it before, you essentially get a small hobby drill and you bore into the model, and you're going to get a piece of wire, ideally the same diameter as what you drilled into it, and you're just going to drill a hole into the base bit that you want to, kind of have it at height wise, and then simply glue them together after that. This is going to create a super strong bond, one that's not really going to come apart. As you can see here in the video, I kind of play around with positioning right before I glue it, and you're going to do the same thing just to make sure that it has a nice natural pose, and that it has kind of a nice place to connect to the model, because not only do you want to pin, but a little bit of the surrounding model should have some contact with the structure, and that's just going to keep adding on to the stability. So as you can see here, it's super easy, doesn't take long at all, and you're really going to thank yourself later for that strong bond. And with that, you should be done with your base. I really appreciate you making it to the end of this video. As you can see here, now the models are painted. If you're interested in how either the bases or these models are painted, we have separate tutorials on the channel already for both of these. You can go back and watch here. And if you really want to, support the channel, we're really new. Liking, subscribing helps a ton. You can get, the bell icon rings to see future videos that are going to be coming to the channel. And if you like the way these models are painted and you're interested in any commission work, we have a new website at everchosenminis.com that you can go to for quotes on commission painting. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Have a good rest of the day.